On the third day of my business trip, I happened to stumble upon my boyfriend's secret Weibo account. Just seconds earlier, he had posted a new update. The greatest regret in life is meeting the girl you want to care for forever right before you're about to get married. It was 2:00 a.m. on day 3. I was soaking in the bathtub of my hotel's executive suite, the cold glow of my phone screen reflecting off the water's surface. I clicked on that familiar profile picture, the private account Shun Mubai never went public with. He had updated 30 seconds ago. It was a blurry photo of a side profile, set against the balcony of his newly purchased apartment in Haicheng. The caption was just that one sentence. I stared at the photo. In the corner, a hand with Klein blue nails was tugging at his tie. That color was eye-searing, mostly because 3 hours ago I had just posted the color palette for the bridesmaid dresses in our engagement group chat. A girl had replied, "I'm so looking forward to being your bridesmaid, sis." That girl was my own cousin, Lin Yu. I didn't cry and I didn't demand an explanation. Instead, I logged directly into the engagement hotel's back-end system and withdrew the $600,000 banquet deposit. Then I took a screenshot of the Weibo post at 8:00 a.m. Without a word to anyone. I rebooked my flight and flew straight back to Haicheng. When I pushed open the apartment door, a pair of Klein blue high heels sat jarringly in the entryway. In the living room, Shun Mubai was cuddling Lin Yu while they ate breakfast. On the table was the premium bird's nest I had someone bring back from abroad. "Sis, why are you back early?" The spoon in Lin Yu's hand hit the bowl with a clink. Her face went pale instantly, though her flirtatious eyes still sought refuge behind Shun Mubai's back. Shun Mubai froze for a second before standing up with an expressionless face. His tone even carried a hint of reproach. "Suhee, why didn't you call first? Yaya had a fight with her family last night and had nowhere to go, so I let her stay over." "Who are you trying to intimidate with that interrogation look?" I said nothing. I walked straight to the dining room, picked up the steaming bowl of bird's nest, and tilted it slowly right in front of them. The dark red liquid poured down the collar of Shun Mubai's custom-made white shirt, soaking him completely. "Suhee, are you crazy?" Shun Mubai jumped up, frantically pulling at his drenched shirt. My hand slipped. I grabbed a tissue and leisurely wiped my fingertips, my gaze landing on Lin Yu. "Yaya, did you sleep well? Was my $2 million custom mattress more comfortable than your rental unit?" Lin Yu's eyes welled up instantly. She bit her lip and whispered, "Sis, you've got it all wrong. Mubai and we're really nothing." "Mubai," I laughed. I reached into my bag and whipped out a stack of photos. They weren't just screenshots from last night, they were hotel records from the past 6 months that I'd dug up during my taxi ride, along with a receipt from the OBGYN clinic where Lin Yu had used Shun Mubai's secondary credit card. "Are you pregnant?" I stared at her stomach. Lin Yu flinched back, but Shun Mubai stepped in front of her, his tone hardening. "Since you know, there's no point in hiding it. Suhee, you're too controlling. Being with you makes me feel like a subordinate. Yaya is different. She needs me. Since you've already pulled the deposit, fine, the wedding is off." "It's off." I arched an eyebrow and pulled out a chair to sit down. "Shun Mubai, have you forgotten? This apartment is in my name. These limited edition leather shoes on your feet were a gift from me. Even your company's business plan for next quarter's IPO was drafted by my team." I pointed toward the door. "Now take your lifetime love and get out right now." "Suhee, don't push it." Shun Mubai pointed at the furniture. "I chose half of this stuff. You have no right to kick me out." "I have the right because I am the sole owner of this property and because the shirt you're wearing hasn't even hit the credit card billing cycle yet, and that card is my secondary account." I picked up a pair of scissors from the table and sliced through his shirt cuff with a sharp snip. "Ah!" Lin Yu screamed. I then sliced open the briefcase Shun Mubai had left on the table. Inside was a document, an equity dilution agreement he was planning to sign behind my back. He intended to secretly transfer our joint venture's core technology to his personal name before the wedding. "Want to care for her forever, do you?" I tore the agreement into pieces and scattered them over their faces. "Shun Mubai, you shouldn't worry about whether the wedding is happening. You should worry about whether you can even walk through the company doors next Monday." Shun Mubai's face transformed. "What do you mean? I own 40% of the shares. You can't fire me." That was before, 30 minutes before I got off the plane. I bought out the voting rights of all the minority shareholders. I stood up, looking down at the pathetic couple. "As of now, you are just a suspended employee pending liquidation for suspected corporate embezzlement." I pointed outside again, my tone as calm as if I were discussing the weather. Get out, don't make me call security. Lin Yu tried to grab my sleeve. Sis, you can't be this heartless. I swung my hand and landed a crisp, loud slap on her face. That one is to teach you about shame. Before she could react, I backhanded her with another. And that one is to teach you to stay away from other people's men. Shen Mubai went livid and raised his hand to hit me. I didn't flinch, I just coldly uttered a few words. There's a voice recorder under the table, and I've set the hallway security cameras to a live stream. Try touching me. Let's see if tomorrow's trending topic is young Master Shen's domestic violence or your company's stock price hitting rock bottom. Shen Mubai's hand froze mid-air, his face turned from pale to purple. Finally, he could only grit his teeth and drag a sobbing Lin Yu out of the house. I sat in the empty living room amidst the mess and dialed the head of the legal department. Old Chen, get ready, we're starting the audit. I want to make sure Shen Mubai never recovers for the rest of his life. Outside, the rain in Haicheng began to pour. This was only day one. Beyond the floor-to-ceiling windows lay the glitz of the Huangpu River. Inside was the sparkling scene of the company's annual gala. Dressed in a black backless gown, I swirled a champagne flute in the second-floor VIP lounge, looking down through the one-way glass at a busy Shen Mubai. He was wearing a navy blue suit today, playing the room like a seasoned socialite. Even after being kicked out of the apartment, he could still rely on those gold-rimmed glasses and his refined appearance to act the part in front of unsuspecting shareholders. Lin Yu had actually shown up too. She wore a pure white off-the-shoulder dress with fragile-looking makeup, looking like a wilting white lotus as she timidly followed Shen Mubai. This was my home turf, yet they wanted to act like they owned the place. Halfway through the gala, Shen Mubai suddenly took the stage. He grabbed the microphone before the host could speak. Everyone, on this festive day, I have a heavy announcement to make. Shen Mubai's voice trembled with a perfectly calculated sorrow. My engagement to Ms. Suhee has been terminated. The reason? It breaks my heart to say, but Suhee used her position to embezzle large sums of company funds and used that to blackmail me into surrendering my shares. The room erupted in whispers. Lin Yu took the cue and ran onto the stage holding a forged miscarriage certificate. She began to sob for the cameras. Sister, if you didn't want the baby, you could have just told me. Why did you push me down the stairs? That was Mubai's own flesh and blood. I sat upstairs, listening to the amateur acting coming through the speakers, and let out a cold laugh. I set down my glass and walked down the spiral staircase, my 10-centimeter heels clicking rhythmically. The hall lights hit me and every eye in the room pivoted. Finished, I walked to the front, my voice cold enough to cut through Lin Yu's crying. Suhee, you actually dared to show your face. Shen Mubai pointed at me with righteous indignation. Call the police, I have all the evidence. Evidence. I took a tablet from my assistant and linked it directly to the giant projector screen. What flashed onto the screen wasn't a financial ledger, it was high-definition footage of Shen Mubai and Lin Yu kissing passionately in a 5-star hotel elevator. The image was crystal clear, you could even see the hickeys on Lin Yu's neck. Is this the evidence President Shen was referring to? I turned to look at the two of them who were now frozen on stage. A collective gasp rippled through the guests. This is a deep fake, Suhee. You're so desperate to cover your crimes that you've stooped this low. Shen Mubai was still trying to struggle. Don't be in such a hurry, there's more. With a swipe of my finger, bank statements and Lin Yu's actual prenatal records appeared on the screen. Lin Yu, the miscarriage certificate in your hand is dated the 3 Road. But these records show you were at a private clinic on the 6th, asking how to protect the pregnancy, and that $5 million in your account, that happened to be wired out of Shen Mubai's Randi budget. I watched the color drain from Shen Mubai's face. By the way, the embezzlement President Shen mentioned, that was actually him to buy Lin Yu that $10 million villa he dipped into vendor prepayments. That hadn't even cleared yet because of my intervention. Those funds have now officially become evidence of his personal criminal misappropriation. Suhee, shut up. Shen Mubai lunged at me like a madman to grab the mic. I threw my entire glass of ice-cold champagne directly into his face. Shen Mubai, do you still not get it? This gala wasn't for the company, it's the funeral I personally prepared for you. At that moment, the doors of the banquet hall swung open, for uniformed police officers walked straight toward the stage. Mr. Shen, regarding the case of suspected professional embezzlement and large-scale misappropriation of public funds, please come with us to assist in the investigation. Lin Yu collapsed onto the floor, her white dress stained with filth. all her purity gone in an instant. "No, this isn't real, Mubai, save me," Lin Yu stammered, clutching incoherently at Shen Mubai's sleeve. Shen Mubai was no longer in any state to care about her, he could only stare at me, his eyes filled with pure terror. "When did you start setting this up, Suhee? Have you been plotting against me from the very beginning? A week before you even posted on that secret account, I had already uncovered all your dirty laundry." I leaned in close to his ear, whispering in a voice only the two of us could hear, "Shen Mubai, did you really think my business trip was for a deal? No, I went to meet the contact person you used to funnel assets. He is now my star witness." Shen Mubai's legs buckled and he collapsed into the arms of the police. I turned around to face the shareholders and executives, whose expressions ranged from shock to calculation, and flashed a professional smile. "Vice General Manager Shen has been taken in for investigation regarding personal financial crimes. Now the gala continues. Tonight's entire tab is on me." I stepped over the fragments of his shattered dignity and walked right past Lin Yu's trembling fingertips. Lin Yu screamed behind me, "So what if you won? The Shen family will never let you get away with this." I stopped in my tracks and looked back at her. "The Shen family, you clearly haven't heard the news. The largest creditor of the Shen Group now goes by the surname Su. The wealthy dynasty you were so desperate to marry into has been bankrupt since this very second." I walked out of the banquet hall as the cold wind hit me. It tasted like freedom. However, I knew this wasn't enough. Behind Shen Mubai was old lady Shen, that malicious elder who had tormented me at every dinner table and was hell-bent on letting Lin Yu into the family. She was likely still waiting for her grandson to return home in glory. The Shen family ancestral home on the outskirts of Haicheng was a place of red bricks and green tiles that reeked of stale decay. Today was supposed to be old lady Shen's 70th birthday. The 100-table feast that had been planned was now a ghost town. News of Shen Mubai's arrest had leaked, leaving only a few distant relatives whispering in the courtyard. When I pushed open the heavy vermilion gates, the piercing groan of the hinges made everyone in the yard turn their heads. "You Jinx, you actually have the nerve to show your face here." Old lady Shen, her hair in a meticulous bun, gripped her red sandalwood cane and made a move to strike me. I stepped aside, and the cane slammed heavily against the bluestone floor with a dull thud. "Save your energy, old lady. If you get too worked up, who's going to visit Shen Mubai in prison for one last look?" I smoothed a non-existent wrinkle on my sleeve and walked straight to the head of the table, pulling out a grand armchair and sitting down. "Suhee, you ungrateful viper, Mubai gave you his heart and soul, and you actually conspired with outsiders to put him in jail." Old lady Shen was shaking with rage, the flesh on her face quivering. "Go drop the charges right now. Tell the police that money was a voluntary gift, otherwise I'll die right here in front of you and let the whole world know you drove your elder to her death." The distant relatives began to chime in. "That's right, Suhee, you were a couple once. Why be so heartless?" "Exactly, a young lady shouldn't be so cold-blooded. The Shens treated you well." I looked around at these leeches who lived off the Shen family and suddenly burst into laughter. The sound was sharp and jarring in the silent courtyard. "Treated me well." I pulled a stack of yellowed photocopies from my bag and slammed them onto the center table. "Old lady, why don't we all take a look at how the Shen family made its first fortune?" The arrogance on old lady Shen's face froze the moment she saw the header of the document. Her hands began to claw nervously at the tablecloth, her eyes flickering with panic. "When the old master Shen was alive, he embezzled the seed money from the trust fund my grandfather left me. Not only that, to cover up the mess, you even forged a waiver of inheritance the day after my parents died in that car crash." I stared into her eyes, enunciating every word. "All these years I paid for Shen Mubai to study abroad and provided this entire family with a life of luxury. Turns out it was all bought with my parents' lives." "You're lying, that was what your parents owed us," old lady Shen shrieked, lunging forward to grab the documents. I stood up abruptly and clamped down on her wrist. My grip was so tight that her withered hand began to turn purple. "Originally, I just wanted to take back what was mine and send Shen Mubai away to reflect, but you crossed the line when you brought Lin Yu in and tried to let that bastard in her womb take over my family's estate." As I spoke, a commotion broke out at the entrance. Lin Yu came stumbling in. She hadn't even had time to change out of her torn gala dress. With her hair disheveled, she fell to her knees at old lady Shen's feet. Grandma, save me. The police sealed my villa. I have nowhere to go." Old lady Shen tried to kick her away in disgust, But Lin Yu clung to her leg like a lifeline. Grandma, didn't you say that as long as I gave birth to the Shun heir, everything Su He owned would be mine? You have to save Mubai. I watched this dog-eat-dog show with cold eyes before pulling out a second thick folder. Old lady, I'm afraid you don't know the full story. That in Lin Yu's belly is indeed related to the Shuns, but unfortunately it's not Shun Mubai's. The courtyard fell into a deathly silence. Old lady Shun froze and Lin Yu went rigid, looking at me in sheer horror. What nonsense are you talking about? Lin Yu shrieked. 6 months ago. To secure a government project, Shun Mubai sent you to someone's bed. Have you forgotten? Do I need to read out the hotel surveillance logs and the private transfer records from Minister Wang? I threw a stack of paternity test copies into Lin Yu's face. I got these from Minister Wang's private doctor. Lin Yu, the child you're carrying is a gift your beloved Mubai personally gave away for the sake of a business deal. Hearing this, old lady Shun spat out a mouthful of blood onto the white tablecloth and swayed on her feet. Animals, you're all animals, she stammered, pointing a shaking finger at Lin Yu and then at the gate. I'm not done yet. I sat back down elegantly, looking at Lin Yu. You thought Shun Mubai loved you. That 5 million he gave you was put into an offshore account under your name. That money is now flagged for money laundering and you are the sole legal representative. That means when Shun Mubai goes down, you won't just be joining him in prison, you'll be carrying his tens of millions in debt. Lin Yu collapsed on the ground, her eyes vacant. Impossible, he said he was taking me abroad tomorrow. Abroad, he planned to take the money and run. You were just the shield he left behind for the police. I stood up and looked down at the wreckage. The so-called prestigious Shun family, which had lasted decades, had completely crumbled in an instant. Old lady, enjoy your birthday feast. I've already filed for a property preservation order on this house. The court will be here to put up the seals tomorrow afternoon. Tonight is the last night you will ever spend here. I turned toward the gate as old lady Shun's hoarse curses followed me. Su He, karma will get you, you wicked woman. I stopped but didn't look back. I simply dropped one last sentence. Karma. My karma was finding out the truth about you people far too late. As for yours, it's only just beginning. As I walked out of the Shun gates, my assistant called. President Su, Shun Mubai has confessed to everything inside, but he wants to see you. He says he has a secret regarding your parents' death and wants to trade it for a reduced sentence. I let out a cold laugh. A secret? In this world the dead don't speak, but evidence does. In the detention center's visiting room, the air smelled of cheap disinfectant. I saw Shun Mubai again through the thick bulletproof glass. The once dashing President Shun was now sporting a buzz cut and a bright orange vest numbered 0942. His eyes were sunken and a dark stubble covered his chin, but his eyes flared with a desperate predatory light. The moment I walked in, I sat down. I didn't pick up the receiver. I just looked at him coldly. Shun Mubai grabbed his phone, his knuckles turning white from the force. He stared at me, his voice rasping like sandpaper. Su He, you finally came. Seeing me fall, seeing the Shun family ruined, do you feel powerful now? I slowly picked up the receiver, my voice steady. Shun Mubai, this is called justice. You have 15 minutes, don't waste them on self-pity. Tell me, where is my brother? Shun Mubai suddenly laughed hysterically, his shoulders shaking. Haha, you really only care about that brat who's been missing for 15 years. Su He, you think you won. You put me in here, but you'll never see Su Chen again in this lifetime. 3 minutes have passed. I lifted my wrist to check my Patek Philippe, the watch he had always coveted but could never afford. If you just want to see me panic, you've miscalculated. If Su Chen is alive, I will find him. If he's dead, I'll send you and your grandmother down to join him. Your chance at a reduced sentence depends entirely on the value of your information. The smile died on Shun Mubai's face. He leaned into the glass and lowered his voice. You think that car crash 15 years ago was an accident? You think Su Chen just got lost in the chaos? Su He, you're so naive. It was my grandmother. She personally handed your brother over to that organization because Su Chen held the final patent key your father left behind, the only key to the Su family's overseas vaults. My heart skipped a beat and my palms began to sweat, but I kept my face expressionless. Evidence, I said coldly. Want evidence? Go to the abandoned chemical plant in the south suburbs. Under the floor tiles of Warehouse 3, you'll find the longevity lock Su Chen was wearing back then. That was the leverage the Shuns used to keep him under control all these years. A calculating glint returned to Shun Mubai's eyes. Su He, I want you to drop the embezzlement charges and give me 10 million USD for medical parole. Once I'm out, I'll take you to him myself. Shun Mubai, do I look that easy to fool? I stood up, looking down at him. I'll go to the plant, and I'll get the locket. As for you, since you've confirmed Su Chen was kidnapped by old lady Shun, you should know that kidnapping and illegal detention are enough to keep you in here until you rot. Don't you want your brother's life? Shun Mubai slammed against the glass with a heavy thud. The guards immediately stepped forward to restrain him. I didn't look back as I walked out of the visiting room. 3:00 a.m. Haicheng South Suburbs Chemical Plant. This place had been abandoned for years, overgrown with weeds, and the air was thick with the acrid stench of lingering chemicals. I led 2 professional security guards, our high-powered flashlights slicing through the gloom as we entered the eerie warehouse. No. 3, President Su, there are signs that these floor tiles have been pried up, a bodyguard noted, pointing to a loose stone slab in the corner. I nodded, gesturing for them to dig. As the earth was overturned, a rusted iron box emerged. Upon opening the lid, a gold locket engraved with the character Chen lay there quietly, stained with dried, blackened blood. But the box contained more than just the locket. There was also a laminated photograph. The photo featured a lean youth around 17 or 18 sitting at a computer with his fingers flying across the keys in a blur. On the side of his neck was a flame-shaped birthmark identical to Su Chen's. Even more shocking was the background. It was the most secretive R&D center of the Shun Group, the forbidden zone that Shun Mubai had always barred me from entering. So that's how it is. I gripped the gold locket so hard my nails dug into my palms. Shun Mubai never sent Su Chen away. Instead, he had imprisoned him within the company, exploiting his extraordinary computer talent to force him to write illegal data scraping code for the Shun Group day and night. President Su, look out! Just as the bodyguard's shout rang out, blinding searchlights suddenly flared up around the warehouse. A black SUV roared through the warehouse doors with a deafening engine wail. The door swung open, and Lin Yu leaped out. She was brandishing a homemade explosive, her face twisted in a manic grin. Su-hee, you sent Mubai to prison and cost me everything. Today, I'm taking you down with me. Lin Yu screamed, her eyes filled with the frenzy of total destruction. I looked at her coldly, standing my ground. Lin Yu, Shun Mubai is already behind bars, and you're still doing his dirty work. Didn't you know? Back there, in order to get a reduced sentence, he pinned every single crime on you. He claimed you instigated the embezzlement, and even said you intentionally sought someone to get pregnant with that child just to climb the social ladder. You're lying, you bitch. You're just trying to drive a wedge between us. Lin Yu's hand trembled, the fuse right at her fingertips. Whether I'm lying or not, listen for yourself. I played the audio recording from the visitation room at full volume. Shun Mubai's contemptuous voice echoed through the speakers. That idiot Lin Yu is nothing more than a vent for my frustrations. If it means Su-hee will let me off the hook, I'd send Lin Yu to the red light district, let alone prison. The audio reverberated in the cavernous warehouse. Lin Yu looked as if she'd been struck by lightning. The explosives hit the ground with a dull thud. He doesn't love me. How could he say that about me? She collapsed to her knees, burying her face in her hands and sobbing hysterically. I stepped forward, kicked the dangerous device away, and looked down at her with icy indifference. Lin Yu, someone like you doesn't even deserve to be my opponent. You thought the Shun family was your lifeline, but to them, you were just a rag to be used and discarded. With a wave of my hand, police officers hidden in the shadows swarmed forward and took the limp Lin Yu away. President Su, the coordinates for the Shun R&D Center have been located. My assistant called in, but the place is guarded by mercenaries. Our people can't get in. I looked at the gold locket in my hand, my gaze as cold as iron. Notify all media outlets. Tomorrow morning at 8:00 a.m. I am holding a press conference at the gates of the Shun R&D Center regarding modern slavery. I wasn't just going to rescue Su Chen, I was going to ensure the name Shun became the filthiest legacy in Haicheng's history. The descent into hell. The Shun R&D building sat at the northernmost tip of Haicheng's high-tech zone, a modern glass structure on the outside, but beneath the third basement level lay a purgatory that never saw the sun. I didn't wait until 8:00 a.m. At 4:00 a.m., I arrived with a demolition crew and a medical team, smashing through the 50-centimeter thick alloy bulletproof door. The air was a mix of the intense heat from the server racks and the musty smell of a room long unventilated. When I burst into the sealed monitoring room, the Walls were covered in screens flickering with complex data streams. In the center, sitting in a gaming chair, was a youth so emaciated he was almost unrecognizable. He wore an oversized white shirt, revealing wrists that were terrifyingly thin, encircled by a black electronic shackle. "Su Chen," I called out, my voice trembling and my eyes stinging. The boy's hands stopped mid-keystroke. He turned his head slowly. His face was a 70% match to my late father's, but his eyes held no joy of reunion. Only a deathly numbness that ignited into intense hatred the moment he saw me. "What are you doing here?" His voice was incredibly hoarse, as if he hadn't spoken in an eternity. "I'm your sister, I'm here to take you home." I hurried forward, reaching out to touch his frail shoulder. "Get away." Su Chen shoved me back with surprising strength. The violent movement caused him to tumble from his chair, his shackles clattering harshly against the metal floor. He glared at me, hissing through gritted teeth, "Su. You murderer who killed our parents, how dare you show your face here? Grandma Shen was right, you staged the car accident to monopolize the inheritance and locked me here to pay off your debts. Are you here now to finish the job?" I froze, feeling as if I'd been dropped into an ice bath. Those Shen family monsters, they hadn't just imprisoned his body for 15 years, they had dripped poison into a child's mind every single day. They had inverted the truth, painting me as a demon who murdered her father and harmed her brother. Su Chen looked closely. I pulled the blood-stained locket from my coat and held it before him. "Our father had this custom made for you. The Shen family lied to you. Old Mrs. Shen sold you to Shen Mubai. They've been using your talent for money laundering and corporate espionage. Stop acting." Su Chen laughed hysterically, tears streaming down his hollow cheeks. "Brother Mubai treated me best. He visited me every day. He said you were out there squandering our family fortune. That you bribed the guards to keep me in. This locket, he fought it away from you to give it back to me." Just then the lab's alarms blared, the room bathed in a frantic red strobe light as a sinister voice crackled over the intercom. It was old Mrs. Shen. "Su-hee, you think you can just take him? I've embedded a self-destruct sequence into the system's core logic. If Su Chen leaves that chair for more than 5 minutes, the entire B3 level will be engulfed in flames. Since you want your brother so badly, you can die here with him." As soon as she finished, thick smoke began billowing from the end of the hallway. The automatic sprinkler system began spraying a pungent, flammable liquid. "President Su, we have to go. This place is going to blow." The bodyguard grabbed my arm to pull me away. I shook him off, my eyes locked on Su Chen. He remained on the floor, watching the chaos with a chilling detachment, as if death were a welcome relief. "Su Chen, you can hate me, but you cannot die for a Shen family lie." I rushed to the main console, my hands flying across the keys. Shen Mubai thought I was just a businesswoman, but he forgot that I was the one who taught Su Chen his first lessons in computing. "What are you doing? You can't change the code. Mubai hired top-tier hackers." Su Chen sneered, but his expression shifted as he saw the familiar decryption commands scrolling across the screen. It was the unique programming style of the Su family, a secret language known only to the two of us. $F X equals \text successor system \_root $. On the final line of code, I typed in a string from a decryption game he loved as a child. The red lights on the screen instantly froze. "Do you see, Su Chen, if I were the killer, why would I have taught you this? If I really wanted you dead, why would I risk my life to come in here?" I turned around, spreading my arms wide against the backdrop of the encroaching fire. 15 years ago, when the crash happened, I was pinned in the back seat watching Mrs. Shen's people pull you from the wreckage. I've looked for you for 15 years. I nearly went insane. Now the path is at your feet. Do you choose the hell the Shen's built for you, or the truth I'm offering? Su Chen's shoulders began to shake violently as he stared at that single line of code only we understood. The deadness in his eyes finally cracked. "Sis," he whispered, his voice barely audible. I lunged forward, gathering his thin frame into my arms. The bodyguard moved quickly, using hydraulic shears to snap the electronic shackles. The moment we cleared the Randy Center's doors, a bone-shaking explosion erupted behind us. The shockwave sent us sprawling onto the lawn as the flames painted half the sky crimson. I held the frail boy tightly, watching the building that symbolized the Shen family's sins turn to ash. Before I could even catch my breath, dozens of news vans surrounded the scene, and there was old Mrs. Shen sitting in her wheelchair and flanked by men in black, weeping before the cameras, pointing a trembling finger at me. She sobbed for the Broadcast, everyone looked to hide the evidence of her illegal experiments. Suhee was crazed enough to set fire to her own brother. I risked my old life just to save a bit of evidence. She was waving a forged document, a psychiatric evaluation report for Suhee. I wiped the soot from my face and helped Su Chen slowly stand up. Old lady, your acting is superb. Unfortunately, you forgot we live in the age of the internet. I took a megaphone from my assistant, my voice booming across the grounds. Members of the media, in the final 3 seconds before the blast, I uploaded 15 years of surveillance footage, experimental data, and the Shun family's complete international money laundering ledgers to a cloud server, accessible to the entire world in real time. I stepped aside, revealing the scarred, red-eyed Su Chen standing behind me, and this man beside me is the victim who was imprisoned by the Shun family for 15 years. He is also my only living relative, Su Chen, old Madam Shun, in the face of the truth. Your physical evidence isn't worth the paper it's printed on. The benevolent mask on old Madam Shun's face shattered instantly. She froze in her wheelchair, watching the police close in and the reporter's shutters clicking frantically. A gurgling rattle escaped her throat before her eyes rolled back, and she slumped over completely. With everyone watching, I led Su Chen toward the Rolls-Royce parked at the curb. Sis, where are we going? Su Chen clutched the hem of my coat like a lost child. Home. I closed the car door, my gaze chilling as I looked out the window. And then we're going to take back the last thing the Shun family owes us. The top floor of Haicheng Boai Private Hospital had been entirely cleared out. Shun Mubai sat on his hospital bed with a thick bandage wrapped around his head, the price he paid by ramming his skull into a detention center wall to secure a medical parole. When I pushed the door open, he was holding a cup of hand-ground coffee, looking nothing like a dejected prisoner. Standing by his bed was a tall man in a sharp, well-tailored suit. The moment I saw that man's silhouette, my footsteps faltered. He turned around slowly, revealing a handsome face with deep features and a hint of a roguish smirk. Lu Jiyuan, Haicheng's most mysterious investment tycoon, and the first love who had vanished 8 years ago without a word, leaving me the laughingstock of the city. Suhee, it's been a long time. Lu Jiyuan's voice was as deep and magnetic as ever. Suhee, surprised. Shun Mubai set down his coffee, his eyes gleaming with vengeful delight. Did you think you could truly crush me? As long as Mr. Lu is here, I can take back everything the Shun family lost. That Shun group you worked so hard to destroy, it's already a subsidiary under Lu Holdings. My fingers tightened around my bag until my knuckles turned white, but I maintained a mask of cold composure. Lu Jiyuan, is this your homecoming gift? Ignoring Shun Mubai's gloating, I looked straight into the eyes I once adored. Siding with a criminal, a piece of scum who orchestrated a kidnapping just to get at me, Lu Jiyuan stepped forward elegantly, stopping just inches away. The faint scent of his oud cologne washed over me. Suhee, business is business, he whispered, leaning down toward my ear. Shun Mubai has the land permit I need. In exchange, I have to keep him alive and help him reclaim his so-called dignity. Is his dignity built on the ruins of the Su family? I let out a cold laugh and took a step back. Lu Jiyuan, since you've chosen this path, we can stop pretending there's any old flame left to protect. Always so direct, President Su. Lu Jiyuan clapped his hands. The television in the room suddenly flickered to life. It showed the Su Group's stock curve, which took a terrifying, vertical plunge within a span of 5 minutes. 10 minutes ago, Su Group's overseas suppliers collectively terminated their contracts after receiving anonymous tips that your company is involved in money laundering and illegal detention. Shun Mubai sneered. So what if you rescued Su Chen now? He's the living proof of your human experimentation and laundering. You thought you were saving him. No, you're personally burying the last of the Su family's foundation. I stared at the screen, my breathing hitching slightly. This was Lu Jiyuan's style, precise, ruthless, and aimed straight for the jugular. He was twisting the explosion from Su Chen's rescue to frame me. Lu Jiyuan, how long do you think these pathetic rumors will last? Just long enough for the Su Group to go bankrupt. Lu Jiyuan said, checking his watch. Suhee, if you sign this equity transfer and merge Su Group into Lu Holdings now, I might consider making Shun Mubai disappear. After all, I don't enjoy working with filth like him either. You want to swallow the Su Group? I pulled a stack of documents from my bag. Instead of setting them on the table, I slapped them directly across Lu Jiyuan's face. The papers scattered across the floor. Lu Jiyuan's expression darkened instantly. Look closely, this is a hedge fund I registered in the Cayman Islands before returning to the country. I looked up, a fire of defiance burning in my eyes. Lu Jiyuan, did you really think you'd finished your homework on me? Did you think my 3-year business trip was just for meetings? I've been waiting for a big fish like you to take the bait. I turned to Shen Mubai, a cruel curve touching my lips. And you, Shen Mubai, you think Lu Jiyuan is your savior? The share buyback agreement he just signed is tied to a $3 billion gambling debt. If Su Group's stock rebounds by 50% within 3 days, Lu Holdings will face billions in damages for malicious short selling. And you, as the guarantor, won't just go back to prison, you'll be saddled with a debt you can't pay off in a lifetime. You're lying, Su Group is collapsing. How could it rebound? Shen Mubai shrieked, lunging for the contract. Because of this, I pressed a button on my phone, the door swung open and Su Chen walked in, dressed in a sharp suit and flanked by a legal team. Though he was still thin, the spark had returned to his eyes. He held a custom-made laptop. Mr. Lu, Mr. Shen, I forgot to introduce myself. Su Chen stepped forward, his voice clear and resonant. I am the new Chief Technology Officer of the Su Group. 10 minutes ago, I remotely secured all evidence of the Shen family's illegal profits and integrated it into Su Group's next-generation encryption algorithm. Right now, every bank in Haicheng is lining up to sign with us because only our technology can patch the massive financial loophole the Shens left behind. Lu Jiyuan's expression finally changed. He stared at Su Chen, then at me. You used your own brother as bait. You let the Shens keep him imprisoned just for this moment. Don't project your filth onto me, Lu Jiyuan. I stood side by side with Su Chen. Su Chen found the code to heaven while he was in hell. I'm just the one who provided the fuel for the fire. Just then, heavy footsteps echoed outside. It wasn't the police, it was the board of directors from Lu Holdings. Their faces were ashen. The lead director pointed a trembling finger at Lu Jiyuan. Lu Jiyuan, you sabotaged the market for a personal vendetta, and now our capital chain is broken. If you don't fix this deficit within 24 hours, you're finished as CEO. I watched as the cracks finally appeared on Lu Jiyuan's unflappable face. This is your first lesson, Jiyuan. I leaned in and whispered in his ear. For vanishing 8 years ago, I'm going to make you pay with the entirety of Lu Holdings. Leaving Shen Mubai to his desperate howls and Lu Jiyuan to his dark realization, I walked out of the room with Su Chen. Where to next, sis? Su Chen asked. To the Lu Holdings press conference. I smiled coldly. They're prepared to announce the acquisition of Su Group. We're going to show up and announce the takeover of Lu Holdings. The Haicheng Arts Center was packed for the joint press conference. What was supposed to be Lu Jiyuan's coronation for swallowing the Su Group had turned into a battlefield under the glare of media cameras. The hall was brilliant with lights and towers of champagne, but the air was thick with the scent of metaphorical gunpowder. I stood in the shadows of the wings, watching Lu Jiyuan walk onto the stage. He adjusted his tie and gave the cameras his signature look, soulful yet steady. Before we announce the partnership, I have a 15-year-old truth I'd like to share with everyone. Lu Jiyuan's voice boomed through the speakers. The screen lit up with a horrific photo of a car crash. My parents, my life's greatest nightmare. It is public knowledge that the Su couple died in an accident, but few know that after inheriting the estate, Miss Su he secretly closed several of her parents' overseas accounts. Lu Jiyuan's tone turned somber. My investigation suggests the crash wasn't an accident but a premeditated murder fueled by internal family greed, and Miss Su he seems to have played a hidden role in this accident. The crowd erupted. Camera shutters sounded like rapid gunfire. Lu Jiyuan looked at me with a look of predatory pity. Su He, if you admit your mistakes and hand the Su Group over to Lu Holdings for management, I can refrain from taking this evidence to the police, for old time's sake. I stepped out from the shadows. The click of my heels on the wooden floor echoed through the sudden silence like a war drum. You always did love a good story, Lu Jiyuan. I walked to the microphone without glancing at the photos. But you forgot one thing. A story is nothing compared to the truth from the mouth of a living witness. I clapped twice. The side door opened, and Su Chen pushed a wheelchair into the hall. In it sat a skeletal old man wearing an oxygen mask. When Lu Jiyuan saw the man's face, his composure disintegrated. He stumbled back, hitting the podium. Is that the Lu family's old butler? Someone in the crowd shouted. He was the most trusted confidant of Lu Jiyuan's grandfather, and the man who had vanished most completely on that rainy night 15 years ago. I leaned down and removed the man's mask. His clouded eyes locked onto Lu Jiyuan. and his withered hand shook as he pointed. The sin, you cut the brake lines yourself to let the Liu family swallow the Su shipping lines. You and your father drugged their wine. Shut up, you crazy old man, what are you talking about? Lu Jiyuan lost control, lunging off the stage to stop him. Su Chen stepped in the way, his thin frame standing like an immovable wall. The screen of his custom laptop was instantly projected onto the big screen, overwriting the crash photo. It was a backup of Lu Jiyuan's father's private diary, accompanied by a string of detailed bank transfers to the insurance adjuster who had handled the case. You're quite the expert at thief crying thief, Lu Jiyuan. I took the mic, my voice terrifyingly calm. You thought you killed the butler to silence him. Fortunately, he survived and was rescued by an orphanage my parents supported. I've kept him hidden abroad all these years, just waiting for today. The media went into a frenzy. Dozens of recorders were shoved into Lu Jiyuan's face. Mr. Lu, is the butler telling the truth? Was the Lu group built on blood money? Lu Jiyuan stood frozen, his face turning from white to a sickly gray. Then he let out a low, raspy laugh. So what if you have a witness? Su He, Lu Holdings controls 60% of Haicheng's logistics. If I fall, the city's economy collapses. Do you think the people at the top will let you touch me? He leaned in, his eyes venomous. You won the reputation, but you can't win the game. Is that so? I smiled thinly and held up a red-headed official document that had just been faxed over. I forgot to mention, 3 minutes ago, Lu Holdings was placed under full receivership due to its involvement in a major murder case and a decade of cross-border smuggling. The takeover is being handled by a special task force, formed by the Su Group and the City Development Bureau. I looked toward the entrance as a group of uniformed officials pushed through the doors. Lu Jiyuan, did you think you came back to hunt me? I looked him dead in the eye. Actually, I'm the one who cast the net. I've been waiting for you for 8 years. Lu Jiyuan watched the officials approach, the documents in his hand slipping to the floor. Su He, you've been calculating this since the moment we broke up 8 years ago. No, I shook my head, my gaze as cold as ice. From the moment my parents closed their eyes, I swore that everyone involved would pay in blood. Shen Mubai would rot in despair in his hospital room, and Lu Jiyuan would break in a court of law. I didn't stay to watch Lu Jiyuan's pathetic arrest. I turned to Su Chen. The hatred in his eyes had faded, replaced by the clarity of a survivor. Sis, is it over? No, Su Chen. I looked out the window at the rising sun, my voice steady and resolute. This is only the first step for the Su family to reclaim the summit. The day Lu Jiyuan was taken away, Haicheng was hit by a rare torrential downpour. The Lu Group skyscraper looked as if it were teetering in the curtain of rain. I sat in the CEO's office on the top floor of the Su Group, clutching an old photograph recovered from Lu Jiyuan's private safe. The photo showed a gentle woman cradling an infant in swaddling clothes. That was my mother, Yi Qingju, but on the back of the photo a bright red letter was stamped. K. Sis, you've been staring at that photo for an hour. Su Chen pushed the door open, holding a top-secret audit report. The Lu Group's books are clear. Aside from the obvious smuggling, they've been funneling massive amounts of capital annually into an overseas account named K Foundation, and the person who authorized the final transfer was our mother. I stood up abruptly, my knuckles turning white from the force of my grip. 15 years ago my mother was declared missing, presumed dead after a car accident, but her body was never found at the scene. Get the car ready, we're going to the Jing'an Sanatorium in the northern suburbs. I commanded coldly. Jing'an Sanatorium, the place old lady Shen had been secretly funding before she lost her mind. When we pushed open the door to the attic room at the very back of the sanatorium, the heavy scent of herbal medicine hit us. A woman sat on the bed with her back to us, leisurely pruning the mandrake flowers on the windowsill. You're finally here. The woman's voice was raspy, yet it carried a bone-chilling familiarity. She turned around, though her face was etched with the marks of time. Her features were a mirror image of my own. Mom. The folder in Su Chen's hand hit the floor. His voice was trembling. Yi Qingju didn't look at Su Chen. Her gaze was locked onto me, her lips curling into a strange, eerie smile. No, I am no Su He. You've done well, harder and more ruthless than I imagined. You destroyed the Shins, swallowed the Lus, and finally earned your ticket into the organization. I didn't move. I simply stared coldly at this woman who was supposed to have died 15 years ago. So the accident back then was a play you directed yourself. You were willing to sacrifice the lives of your own children just to fake your death and escape. It was to protect you. Yi Qingju suddenly became agitated, stabbing her scissors hard into the flower pot. The Su family's pittance of an inheritance is nothing compared to K. If I hadn't disappeared, you would have ended up as lab rats long ago. Shen Mubai and Lu Jiyuan were nothing more than whetstones I gave you to sharpen your blade, Su He. Only by becoming strong are you qualified to inherit my position. Whetstones. I let out a sharp, bitter laugh, stepping toward her. To sharpen this blade, Su Chen was imprisoned in a dark basement for 15 years. To sharpen this blade, I endured 8 years of betrayal and became the laughingstock of the entire city. This protection you speak of is forcing us to live in hell. The winner takes all, those are the rules. Yi Qingju stood up and pulled a pitch-black seal from under her pillow, offering it to me. Take this and you are the new master of Haicheng. All the capital, all the power, it will all bow to you. I looked at the seal that represented ultimate power and reached out to take it. A flash of relief and greed crossed Yi Qingzhou's eyes, but a second later her expression froze. I didn't tuck the seal away, instead right in front of her, I dropped it into the nearby paper shredder. With the harsh mechanical grind of the blades, the seal, the symbol of wicked power, was reduced to dust. Are you crazy? Do you have any idea what that was? Yi Qingju lunged forward to grab it. I caught her wrist, my grip even tighter than it had been on old Lady Shen years ago. I don't need a legacy soaked in blood. I leaned into her ear, my voice devoid of warmth. Yi Qingju, did you think you controlled everything? Did you think Shen Mubai and Lu Jiyuan were just pawns? Then do you know that I already used Su Chen's system to bypass Haicheng entirely and sink all the evidence of Organization's transnational crimes directly to Interpol? Yi Qingzhou's pupils contracted sharply. You betrayed the organization. You'll die too. Whether I die or not is uncertain, but you will definitely spend the rest of your life in prison. I waved my hand, and a team of fully armed personnel stepped out from the shadows outside the room. These weren't ordinary police, they were special agents from the International Anti-Money Laundering Task Force, MS. Yi Qingju. Regarding the organization's global financial crimes, please come with us. Yi Qingju slumped to the floor, looking at me as if she were looking at a monster. Su He, you are more like Khan I ever was. You have no heart. My heart burned to ash in that fire 15 years ago. I took Su Chen's hand and walked out of the attic without looking back. The rain had stopped by the time we left the sanatorium. Sis, is it finally over? Su Chen looked toward the horizon, his voice laced with confusion. Not yet. I looked toward the Su Group headquarters. The remnants of the Shen and Lu families are still watching. We're going to finish the house cleaning. Just then my phone buzzed with an anonymous text. It contained only 2 words, a gift in return. Immediately after, the Su Group's head of security called in a panic. President Su Shen Mubai escaped. He seriously injured the guarding officers and went missing during his medical parole transfer. Also Lin Yu, she committed suicide in prison. She left a blood-written note, swearing to drag you to hell with her. I snorted and crushed the phone in my hand. Shen Mubai, I knew you weren't finished yet. If you want to play with your life, I'll play one last round with you. 15 years ago, the cross-sea bridge in the southern suburbs of Haicheng collapsed, taking my parents' lives. 15 years later, although the bridge had been rebuilt, the stagnant smell of rotting seawater never seemed to fade. At 11:00 p.m., the rain was pouring again. I drove alone to the bridgehead, my high beams illuminating the shattered figure ahead. Shen Mubai stood there in a blood-stained prison uniform, clutching a remote control, standing precariously on the edge of the bridge railing. Behind him, inside a modified van, Su Chen and several Corps Randi staff members were hooded, bound and gagged. More chillingly, small red lights were blinking underneath the van's chassis, high explosives powerful enough to level this entire section of the bridge. Su He, you finally came. Shen Mubai let out a beast-like roar, rainwater streaming down his mangled scars. The remote in his hand wobbled. You thought you won, you destroyed the Shins, you destroyed my future, and now you want to destroy my life. If I can't live, then we all die here together as sacrifices for the Su couple. I pushed the car door open. I didn't bring an umbrella. Letting the rain soak my black coat instantly, I stepped through the puddles, the churning sea roaring beneath my feet. Shen Mubai, let Su Chen go. Your grudge is with me. There's no need to take these innocent people down with you. I stopped 5 meters away, my gaze as cold as a blade. Innocent? There are no innocent people in this world. Shen Mubai pointed at Su Chen in the car, his whole body shaking with laughter. This kid holds all the Su family's financial secrets. As long as he dies, the Sue line is truly finished. Soo-hee, I'm going to make you watch your own flesh and blood get blown to pieces, just like you watched your parents die. Sis, MMPH. Soo Chen struggled violently in the car, shaking his head in desperation. I looked at Shin Mu-bai and suddenly gave a soft laugh. The sound was jarring against the thunder. What are you laughing at, you crazy woman? What's so funny? Shin Mu-bai was enraged by my reaction, his finger tightening on the trigger button. I'm laughing because even at death's door, you still don't realize you're just a discarded pawn. I pulled a microprojector from my pocket and projected an image onto the curtain of rain. On the screen was a video Lin Yu left before her suicide. She wasn't dead, that was just a smoke screen I'd set up. In the video, Lin Yu sat in the interrogation room with hollow eyes, confessing how Shin Mu-bai had personally strangled their unborn child to frame me while trying to move assets. Shin Mu-bai, you think Kiss coming to save you? Look at this warrant. I switched the image to a global red notice just issued by Interpol. It clearly stated Shin Mu-bai, low-level pawn of K organization, clean-up order issued by the organization. Impossible, they promised to take me away. Shin Mu-bai froze, his hand holding the remote trembling violently. Look behind you. I pointed at the faint red dots blinking on the surface of the sea. Those were sniper infrared dots. But they weren't the police, they were the real assassins from K. They weren't there to save him, they were there to silence him. They want to kill me, even they want to kill me. Shin Mu-bai completely broke down, waving the remote frantically. Then we all die, everyone dies together. He slammed the button. No, I screamed and lunged forward. Boom, a world-shaking explosion erupted. But it didn't come from the van. A speedboat out on the sea had suddenly exploded, the massive fireball turning the entire area red. Shin Mu-bai stared stunned at the unresponsive remote in his hand, then back at me. Shin Mu-bai, did you really think Soo Chen spent 15 years in a lab only learning to write code? I looked at him coldly. The second you kidnapped him, the electronic jammer on his person took over all radio frequencies in this area. That remote in your hand couldn't even start a toy car now. In that moment of shock, Soo Chen slammed against the unlocked van door and lunged at Shin Mu-bai from behind. The two struggled at the edge of the railing. Soo Chen let go. I rushed forward in terror. Shin Mu-bai had gone completely insane. He gripped Soo Chen's throat, half his body already over the railing. Then I'm taking you down with me, Soo-hee. I'll make sure you live in a nightmare for the rest of your life. Bang, a dull gunshot rang out. A bloody hole appeared in Shin Mu-bai's forehead. His eyes widened in disbelief, and his fingers slowly loosened. I held a compact pistol, the muzzle still smoking. I had practiced this shot for 8 long years. Shin Mu-bai's body fell like a broken kite, plunging straight into the abyss of the open sea, swallowed instantly by the surging waves without even a scream. I rushed to the railing and grabbed the swaying Soo Chen. Sis. Soo Chen collapsed onto the ground, gasping for air, tears mixing with the rain on his face. I held him tight, my body shaking uncontrollably. It's over, Soo Chen, this time it's really over. I turned to look at the van full of explosives as the sirens of approaching police cars finally pierced the night. The Shins, the Lus, Yi Qingju, and the shadow of cart had nearly crushed me. It all collapsed in this moment as Shin Mu-bai hit the water. However, as I helped Soo Chen up to leave, I caught something out of the corner of my eye where Shin Mu-bai had been standing. His phone lay there. The screen was lit up with a newly received MMS message. With trembling hands, I tapped it open. It was a family photo. In the photo, besides a young me and Soo Chen, were my parents, who were supposed to be dead. But in the background of the photo, a man in a black trench coat stood with his back to the camera. On the web of his left thumb was a tattoo I knew all too well. It belonged to the Soo family's old butler, the witness who had just testified against Lu Jiyuan at the press conference. I caught my breath. It turned out that the biggest winner in this game had never even shown his face. Haicheng Cemetery. The place was shrouded in a thick fog, with neat rows of tombstones standing like silent sentinels. I wore a long pure black trench coat, carrying 2 bouquets of white calla lilies. As I walked alone up the winding stone path, I left Soo Chen in the car. His body still needed rest, and I didn't want him involved in the conversation that was about to happen in front of my parents' joint grave. That aged back had been waiting for a long time. He had traded his shabby hospital gown from the press conference for a perfectly tailored deep grey suit. His back was straight, gone was any trace of the dying old man. I knew you'd understand that text. The old butler turned around. tipped his hat and gave me a slight bow. His tone was so respectful it was terrifying. Lu Jiyuan's grandfather did want to kill my parents back then, but the one who actually cut the break lines wasn't Lu Jiyuan or his father. I stopped 3 steps away and set the flowers down, my voice as cold as the autumn mist. It was you, Uncle Lu, or should I call you the founder of K, the true mastermind behind the Su family. The old butler gave a low chuckle, a spark of admiration in his cloudy eyes. Here, you are smarter than your father and more decisive than your mother. That fool Yi Qingju thought she could control everything from the shadows, never realizing that her fake death and disappearance were all parts of the script. I wrote to groom you, to groom me. I looked up, laughing in pure rage. To groom me, you watched the Shen family occupy the Su estate for 15 years. You watched Su Chen be tortured in hell. You watched me be toyed with by Shen Mubai and Lu Jiyuan. Heavy is the head that wears the crown. The old butler walked to the tombstone, gently touching my father's photo. The Su family's wealth is boundless. If I hadn't forged you into the sharpest blade in the world, that wealth would have been your death. Warrant, the Shens were your lesson in resilience, the Lus were your lesson in calculation, and Yi Qingju was the final lesson I taught you, that family ties are the cheapest poison in this world. He pulled a translucent white jade thumb ring from his coat and held it out to me. Now the Shen and Lu families have vanished. Yi Qingju will spend the rest of her life in prison. The Su group has swallowed all the logistics and financial lifelines of Haicheng. This ring is the true scepter of K, take it. And you will be the only true god at the top of the pyramid. I looked down at the ring, the pinnacle of power that countless people dreamed of. As long as I put this on, I become the second you, right? I asked softly. No, you will be stronger than me. You will be the queen of Haicheng. And even the global capital markets. A fanatical light flickered in the old butler's eyes. I reached out and slowly took the ring. The old butler smiled with satisfaction, preparing to bow, but in the next second, right before his eyes, I opened my hand. The white jade ring traced an arc through the air and smashed heavily against the stone steps of the grave. With a sharp crack, it shattered into several pieces. The old butler's smile froze. He looked at the fragments on the ground in disbelief. Are you insane? Do you have any idea how much wealth and power that represents? I didn't spend 15 years just to become another monster. I pulled a stack of signed documents from my coat and threw them at his feet. This is the asset restructuring agreement for the Su Group. As of today, 70% of the Su shares will be transferred to a public charitable trust dedicated to finding missing children and fighting transnational crime. The remaining 30% I'm leaving to Su Chen so he can pursue the research he loves. You've destroyed 3 generations of Su family accumulation. The old butler shrieked, lunging to grab my collar. Dozens of plainclothes police officers emerged from behind the cemetery trees, quickly pinning him to the ground. Uncle Lu, did you think I came alone today? I looked down at him, my eyes filled only with pity. You taught me for 15 years, but you forgot the most important thing. You cannot gamble with the human heart. I turned and walked toward the exit. Su He, you won't get away. The remnants of Quan Ti let you go. The old butler screamed curses behind me. I didn't look back, I just waved a hand outside the cemetery. The sun finally broke through the thick fog, spilling over the roof of the black Rolls-Royce. Su Chen pushed the door open and gave me a clear, bright smile. Sis, all done, all done. I sat in the car, leaning back against the seat with a sense of total relief. So where to now? To the board meeting? No. I looked at the scenery flying past the window, this city that I had personally stirred into a storm and then returned to peace. To the airport. We're going somewhere where the names Shun Lu and Su don't exist. We're going to live the life you've always wanted. I took out my phone and opened a long dormant alt account on Weibo. Shen Mubai's account had long been banned. I posted one last update, featuring a photo of the first light of dawn in the cemetery. The caption was just one sentence. The greatest regret in life is thinking you've found salvation before seeing the truth. But the greatest blessing is finding that after the dawn you are still yourself. I turned off the phone and tossed it out the window into the harbor. This is my story, no white moonlight out of reach, no broken mirror joined again through toxic love. I stepped over the corpses of traitors, tore apart the shackles of power, and after the long night I crowned myself. From now on, there is no President Su in Haicheng, only a free Su He.